This videotape is part of a kit we've called Ready, Set, Go for Community Economic Development. It consists of 8 short programs designed to be used in conjunction with the written material you'll find in the kit. This first program briefly explores the concept of community economic development and identifies the factors necessary for success. The second program outlines a planning framework you can use, and then the next 6 video programs examine key strategies that various communities have used to improve their local economies.
Community economic development is simply the process of trying to involve the residents of a community in planning for their own economic future.
Often, a local crisis has been the catalyst for a community taking charge of organising its own economic future. For Corryong, it was the closure of the butter factory.
With 20 families likely to move out of our community, we recognised that it would be 1 or 2 less teachers, a couple of beds less required at the hospital, and suddenly we had a mini crisis.
In Wycheproof, it was when the menswear store closed that locals realised the town was in decline and something had to be done. Often the closures or job losses were the result of wider economic factors, the restructuring of industry, international market prices, things outside the control of local, state and even federal governments. But by being aware of competitive advantages and using a combination of innovative ideas and a variety of opportunities, many towns and urban communities have started to turn their situations around. And by following their example, it means that you don't have to wait for a crisis to happen. It's obviously a far better idea to create and encourage positive change in your community before you are forced into it. These changes can be brought about by identifying your competitive advantages, determining your community's aspirations, bringing more money into your community, keeping money circulating in your community, understanding existing markets, exploring and identifying new market possibilities, identifying new development opportunities, creating strategic alliances between key groups and increasing the net number, quality and variety of local jobs. The results can be quite impressive. Melton increased local business trading by an estimated $15 million over a period of 8 months. The small town of Murrabit on the New South Wales border attracts thousands of people and dollars to its monthly market. One successful small business in Beechworth has had a dramatic effect on the whole town, and in central Victoria, a number of rural communities have worked together to establish their own enterprise funding scheme. Economic development consultant Peter Kenyon has made a life study of these kinds of initiatives and has identified what he calls the key ingredients for success. These include belief and expectation that it can happen, confidence, a positive attitude and a willingness to initiate change can be much more important than a wonderful location or other obvious natural advantages. Communities that succeed have been able to work together. This sometimes means managing community conflict and even harnessing it for a positive result. It also means involving as many people in the community as possible in the projects that are going to shape their future. It's hard to underestimate the power of strong local leadership, and part of community economic development is to identify, encourage and provide skills to potential leaders in your community. Strategic planning and action means putting into place planning and management structures so that strengths and opportunities can be recognised, and an action plan can be put into place with continual evaluation and adjustment. Finally, successful communities are always on the lookout for any opportunities and resources that become available, making use of all kinds of networks and contacts. In the following video programs, we're going to look at practical strategies that you can use in your own community. These include setting up a planning framework, working to retain and expand existing business, fostering new enterprises, attracting outside industry, business and resources, plugging the leaks in your local economy, enhancing the job linking capacity of the community, and marketing the community.
Planning, 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 the 3 Ps of community economic development. Planning, planning, planning.
Strategic planning as it relates to economic development really involves communities exploring 4 very simple questions. Where are we at? Or what have we got here? Secondly, where do we want to go? Thirdly, how do we get there? And finally, how do we know we've arrived?
In Ballarat, economic planning has happened as a part of a much wider community plan called Creating Our Future. It's divided into 3 main sections: existing conditions, trends and issues, and strategies. The important thing about the Ballarat approach has been the involvement of the community. It started with mass public meetings and informal gatherings, media coverage and individual reports from 90 selected community members with diverse backgrounds. The plan was launched in 1994 and has received a number of awards.
I guess one of the hallmarks of what we've been doing has been very strongly community-based, bottom-up information, but local government playing a key role in facilitation. And I think that's one of the new dimensions for local government. It's very much to work interactively with the community about the future, direction setting, vision setting for the community. And one of the benefits that comes from that is that people feel that they own local government, they're actually an integral part of it. And the second major thing is that we don't actually have to centralise all actions towards strategy implementation. The communities themselves are actively involved in implementation.
On a smaller scale, a good example of a community planning its own economic development is the Mallee town of Wycheproof. And although this is a rural community, the same principles would apply anywhere. As we have already mentioned, the closure of the menswear store in Wycheproof made locals realise that the town was in decline and something needed to be done. In August 1994, a meeting was organised to involve as many locals as possible in planning for the community's future in the year 2000. A small group of local leaders organised publicity for the meeting, which included the display of school students' posters depicting their vision of the town in the future. The publicity worked well and more than 100 people attended the meeting at the Wycheproof Golf Club. Peter Kenyon led the proceedings.
I suppose that's the challenge that towns are starting to respond to. Not waiting for the cavalry or the hired guns to be sent from Canberra or from Melbourne.
Peter's introduction included setting some important ground rules and encouraging people to take a positive approach.
First thing I just ask is, as you come through the door, can you make sure you check in any old disputes, feuds and ideologies at the door? The second thing is, anything goes. Don't be afraid of new ideas, respect other people's opinions. And probably the most important, what tonight's on about is trying to say, what do we want to see happen? Really trying to develop, not on the past, we can't do anything about the past, but we can do something about the present and the future.
The meeting divided into random groups, and the first thing was to list the community's strengths or advantages, its weaknesses and limitations, and then visions for the future. Spokespeople presented these results to the wider audience.
That we have more cultural activities to sort of broaden the experiences of our children. That we look at marketing our educational services. That we sort of can provide areas for Asian students to come here and learn and spend time at our schools. That we look at putting in an FM radio station for our youth. That we...
You have a look at your sheet that you got when you came in. It talks about workshop number 2, the bottom half. And what it says is, in your groups, to initially brainstorm practical projects that you think could start to happen. I notice when I ask people to give a list of characteristics.
For a grant to pay for paint, then use the unemployment funds to find someone that can do it for very little and get some work experience at the same time. Then approach some signwriter for a bulk deal with the whole, say 10 shops, 8 shops.
In other towns, I don't know whether any farmers around here would be interesting, but dividing your farm into small farmlets and selling them for sort of a little...
Yeah, but this has got to be 12 months, short-term stuff for us.
I think we've got to get the whole lot first, haven't we?
Right, putting in farmlets.
Let's just very quickly just list them. Number 1 was a restaurant gallery. Number 2 is a town beautification, doing up the shopping area, heritage colours, signage, trees, that type of thing. Project number 3 is a farm machinery dealership, mechanic. That's a headhunting project, business project. Business number 4 is to redevelop the Mount and the Fauna Park.
Then Peter employed a technique for getting people to identify which projects they felt most affinity with.
What I'm going to give you is $6,000, namely 6 dots. Where would you spend your money or your time? I want you to imagine each of these dots represent either $1,000 or 100 hours of your voluntary effort. Where would you use it?
This resulted in a list of projects that were graded in popularity according to the number of stickers.
So, at the top of the list is the lake, the chemist, road construction, the laundry linen project, and the machinery dealership. Those 5 followed by town beautification, business development committee.
The final activity of the night identified people from the community who were willing to be project leaders, and then those who were prepared to have at least an initial involvement with the particular activity. A framework was in place and action was underway. Going back to the stages we first outlined, you can see that at Wycheproof the group had addressed the first 3 questions. The 4th question, how do we know when we have arrived, refers to constantly monitoring and evaluating actions that are being undertaken. This might involve setting appropriate time frames, seeking community feedback, always trying to maintain community interest and support, and if necessary, occasionally refocusing on the direction in which you're going. Refer to the manual in the Set section for details of other planning tools that can be useful. These include community surveys, study tours, competitions, a skills register, or the use of an outside consultant. Finally, an important thing to note is that the projects you initiate need to be modest enough to be achievable.
I think the successful communities are communities that identify what I call bite-sized projects. In other words, small achievable things that everybody understands the role they can play in achieving them. They can understand the cost, they can understand the timing framework, and of course once those things are achieved, there's a sense of accomplishment that takes people on to the next ones. I think that's important.
The existing business base in any community is one of their greatest resources, and communities are beginning to realise that there are a number of measures that they can undertake that can actually strengthen that local business base. Measures that can improve their market share, measures that can improve their productivity and their profitability. The evidence is clear, for example, that often up to 70% of new jobs created in any community don't come from new business startup, but come from existing businesses doing better.
In a community, the existing businesses that most of us come into frequent contact with are our local retail traders. Improving customer service is one important way in which these people can increase their market share and expand. According to the training organisation Aussie Host, which specialises in improving customer service, it's been established that the reason that retailers lose 68% of their customers is the attitude of staff. They maintain that it can cost 6 times more to attract a new customer than to retain an existing one. A dissatisfied customer is likely to complain to 11 other people, who will then pass the bad news on to 5 others. That's 67 in total. But on the positive side, one satisfied customer can generate an average of 7 new customers. And quality service can generally justify an increase in price of around 9%. Plus, retailers that offer quality service are likely to grow twice as fast, with a market share 3 times that of other businesses. An example of the kind of good retailing practice that towns need to encourage is the Beechworth Bakery. This remarkable business in a town of 3,800 employs 57 people. It has a turnover of $2 million per annum from over-the-counter sales, and it's received 2 awards, including Tourism Victoria's Award for the Best Significant Local Attraction in 1994. The bakery's success is due to a combination of excellent customer service and a high-quality product.
All my apprentices, when they start their job, or anyone, and they'll bring something out of the oven, and I'll say to them, would your mother like to buy that? And they say no. Normally they'll say no, and I'll say, well, don't bloody expect anyone else to buy it here. Don't sell it. Don't sell it if you wouldn't buy it. But give them something special. Give them, an experience. Give them freshness. And give them the service.
The business generated by the bakery has also had a big effect on the whole town.
We have this great turnaround of new businesses and old businesses, but they're being operated by newcomers to the town who I'm sure in many cases have been attracted to the town because of the success of the bakery. They see it as a perfect example of, they think the town's on a roll. And it is on a roll, but it has nothing to do with tourism strategies or anything like that. I'm quite confident in saying this. It's almost wholly and solely due to the success of the bakery.
Another important factor is the emphasis Tom O'Toole places on training. There aren't many bakery shops in Australia that provide their own sales manuals or have a library of personal development books available to staff. Also part of the Beechworth Bakery's staff training schedule is the use of Aussie Host. Aussie Host is an accredited training scheme based on similar operations in Canada and New Zealand, and it's usually organised through a local service club or organisation. The idea is that people become ambassadors for your community.
I think it's just the cheapest investment anyone can make in business development. We spend a fortune on advertising and promotion and buying the premises and doing the signs, buying the stock, funding the overdraft, but just a very modest investment in customer service can reap terrific benefits. So Aussie Host has been something that we've embraced quite significantly in Corryong, and it's a noticeable difference.
Moving away from retail, at Werribee, the enterprise potential of people working in the arts has been recognised, and an arts register has been established together with an arts small business network. Arts workers are being encouraged to understand their role as small business operators, and the cultural identity of the community is also being enhanced.
We've found through the Arts Small Business Strategy that there are 86% of our businesses who are located in home. The vast majority of them have no business training. The vast majority of them want to earn an income through their work, but they're not sure how. We have an incredible talent base here, but it's unexposed, it's not well seen, it's virtually non-existent to the eyes of most people. We want to change that, and we're doing that through our Arts Small Business Strategy and our Arts Register.
The Arts Register is a listing of arts workers in the Werribee area with details of their skills and services. This has become a valuable source of contacts for people like Gwen Narras, who is in the final stages of setting up a retail craft outlet in Werribee.
By going through the register itself, reading people's names, finding out what they did, I use that register to ring people, speak to them. Therefore, a lot of the people on the register are going to have their products shown at my retail outlet.
We're also providing people information about how to apply for grants, how to retail, how to do better marketing, how to do better promotion. There's a whole lot of other things that are happening through that register now.
Another form of networking that can assist existing businesses is happening just up the road from Werribee at Melton and Bacchus Marsh. In order to educate and encourage networking among local business people, a program of regular business breakfasts have been organised. It's a way of introducing new skills and information, but it also helps to establish links between the various businesses. Consultant Bruce Atkinson, who is one guest on the Melton Business Breakfast calendar, suggests that this getting businesses to work together is vital.
I think businesses working together is absolutely crucial to the success of a total town. And it's an interesting thing because when we're in business, we are fiercely competitive. You know, we are constantly striving to beat our opposition, to beat the competition. And we have to survive. You know, that's part of what it's all about. But what we've got to do is be a little bit like a football team, I suppose, where we've got tremendous, unique individual skills, but we've got to make sure that we combine when we come to a town situation and work with other businesses within that town for the betterment of the town overall and really for the achievement of our own goals. I mean, any footballer will tell you that it's much better to win a grand final than it is a Brownlow medal.
Butchers in the Mallee got together when Enterprise facilitator Peter Carrick organised a meeting where a representative from the industry introduced the butcher shop owners to new developments in the trade and suggested improved ways of displaying their wares.
We've seen a marked improvement in the retail presentation of a lot of shops. We had some butcher shops that never even had a refrigerated display cabinet. You walked in and all you saw was the big burly guy behind the counter. We've seen people take a greater interest in their window display, presentation of their window display, the types of cuts that they're doing.
Another possibility for communities or individual business operators is to strengthen their position by using innovative marketing techniques. When the Hume Highway bypassed Euroa, a group of local businesses printed this special map encouraging people to still call in. They also issued these Euroa Gold Passes offering a 10% discount in order to hold local trade and attract people off the highway. Some communities have even managed to encourage their local businesses to turn to international markets. In Portland, a chance meeting between Regional Development Board Executive Director Graham Dawson and Chinese national Mr. Charles Chai has resulted in Portland's China Trade Program. This is a 2-year initiative aimed at developing trade and investment links between Portland and 2 provinces in China. So far, this has resulted in moves towards a joint venture wool scouring operation and the establishment of a sister city relationship. These have been a few examples of strategies that have happened in other places for retaining and expanding existing businesses. Use them as a basis for discussion and refer to the written material in this kit for more information.
There is also a constant need for communities to encourage the development of new business in response to changing needs or in terms of capturing those sales that might go elsewhere. Therefore, we're finding communities across the country are starting to engage in a whole range of initiatives that kind of like encourage new economic and enterprise activities.
One way communities have fostered new enterprise has been to actively generate ideas for new businesses. The town of Albany in Western Australia has established an Economic Opportunities Committee to look for new enterprise possibilities. In the far west of Victoria, the town of Conniva has identified gaps in the local community, and they've come up with more than 90 possible directions to pursue. The process here can be as simple as scanning newspapers or directories for business ideas that could operate within your own area. Communities are also taking advantage of various government funds and are setting up business enterprise centres. Part of their role is to foster and encourage new business.
Basically, I'm here to give free and confidential business advice to people looking at getting into business, with their new ideas, people in business who are looking to diversify, or people who are struggling in their current business.
The Shire of Melton has put in place a number of initiatives helping new enterprise, including provision of low-cost industrial premises.
Council has built 18 unit factories. They're very small, but varying from 90 to 150 square metres. We are trying to help fledgling businesses out of homes make their first step into the real business world, I guess. And so what we do is we discount the market rents over the first 5 years from 70% of market rent up to 100%, and then after 5 years encourage people to relocate via relocation grants. It's been a very successful program. A number of those companies have moved out into their own industrial floor space in the town and are exporting and doing very well.
Similar factory sites are being built at Eaglehawk on the outskirts of Bendigo. Here it's the result of a partnership between the local council and a community-based organisation called Future Employment Opportunities Incorporated. The focus is on helping long-term job seekers create their own employment. The local railway station has been rejuvenated and turned into an employment training centre now called the Eaglehawk Training Station. Job seekers from the centre are constructing 20 factories which will house a mixture of new and existing businesses. One new business is the Eaglehawk Recovery and Sales Yard.
This was a group of job seekers who have been unemployed for quite a length of time. It started up at the Eaglehawk tip with a bare patch of ground, and in 6 months they've been prepared to put up with the very poor working conditions of working up at the tip, having no real amenities, collecting items from the tip face and reselling them back to the public. And in just 6 months these people have been able to establish a business that turns over $10,000 a month. Just this week we've put 5 of these people on 12-month contracts to be employed to run this particular business, and they're looking at a budget of $150,000 over the next 12 months.
Just down the road from the Enterprise Park is the Eaglehawk Enterprise Centre, which houses 4 new businesses plus a business training facility. It's also home to a youth enterprise project where young people are supplementing their income by manufacturing various items while they're training. There's also an interesting youth enterprise project in Werribee, where the Station Cafe provides very practical training for the hospitality industry. Another way new enterprise can be assisted is demonstrated by this biscuit manufacturer in Donald. This now thriving business grew from the combination of an unemployed pastry cook, an active development committee, the local business facilitator, an empty building, and 5 so-called angels. That is, local people who have invested in the new business. For a business like Country Cookies to get off the ground, seeding finance is often critical and can be very hard to find. 100 kilometres down the road in the old gold town of Denali, a special revolving investment fund has been launched to address this problem. The Rural Investment Fund is a joint venture by a number of rural shires, and it aims to attract investment in local business. The concept is that investors can specify which communities they want their funds to go to, and can again take an active part in fostering new local enterprise. Once again, these examples may or may not apply to your own community, but they do provide principles which should be useful for examining your own situation as it relates to fostering new enterprise.
Attracting industry from outside has been a fairly popular measure in many communities, and certainly across the country we've got some very good examples of where communities have launched We're Good for Business and business and lifestyle campaigns to achieve that aim. And in some cases there have been some quite stunning results. For example, Benalla in securing the Commonwealth Ammunition Factory is a very good example of the type of process that a community can use to achieve a significant industry with very significant jobs attached. But in addition to that, there are certainly other types of initiatives that communities can take that can certainly lead to the bringing in of resources and industries from outside.
First, let's look at that Benalla story. In 1992, Australian Defence Industries made a decision to locate a new manufacturing plant at Benalla. For many communities, this would have been a dream come true. Benalla managed to win the industry from a shortlist, which included the much larger centres of Albury and Wagga. But apart from having an appropriate site, winning the bid wasn't just a matter of good luck. Some of the strategies employed were quite subtle. For example, at every opportunity, Benalla presented a symbol which graphically combined the ADI logo with that of the city. But generally speaking, the bid involved 4 years of very hard work, a lot of attention to detail, and spending money.
We had expended a substantial amount of money in putting our bid together because we wanted it to be the most professional. And there was always a risk that we'd expended that money for nothing if we weren't successful. But I think because the community worked with us, they would have been willing to accept that. Although disappointed, they at least would be seeing that we were having a go. And that's very, very important for a community to identify that its local government area is at least trying, up there trying.
In the north of the state, the town of St Arnaud is a rural community that has been able to attract a number of smaller, diverse, new industries.
You really have to work very, very hard. You have to be proactive, progressive, optimistic, and everything you do has to be with a long-term goal in mind. When you want tourists and business people and anybody who would drive through the town to be remarking all the way for the next 50 kilometres down the highway about how that town's changed in the last 10 years or 5 years, and how attractive it was, how clean it was, and how nice a town it would seem to be to bring up your family and live in.
Closer to Melbourne, in the city of Essendon, Moonee Ponds has managed to attract significant new business and industry as a result of improvements to the shopping centre.
The city of Essendon has worked very, very close partnership with the Moonee Ponds traders, and they've got a very, very active program together there. They've organised a special rate. It's been in place for probably a year and a half now. It's also been assisted by council, who's put a significant amount of money over a number of years into streetscape improvements and other things, and have been very active in trying to attract new tenants and new operators to the centre.
But for many rural communities like Corryong, 4.5 hours from Melbourne, the reality of a large industry or business locating or relocating to their area is questionable.
I guess we had great visions originally of attracting business into Corryong, and we could see Silicon Valley being established there. And so for a year or so, as good meaning volunteers, we all rushed around chasing footloose industries and encouraging our council to put up packages to attract industry. And I guess it took us 18 months or so of putting in a lot of time and effort and energy into promoting our vacant dairy factory as an ideal location to set up a new industry and a stable workforce and all those beaut things that every community has got. And then we started to realise that we had to look back at what were the real resources we had locally that we could build on.
The result of this in Corryong was a refocusing of energy towards a number of new enterprises such as a peppermint industry and the establishment of a successful tourism strategy. Another alternative to trying to entice large companies or industries to come to your community is to identify gaps in the local business infrastructure and actively seek appropriate new operators.
one of the things that often occurs to me is that real estate agents continually advertise for people to fill shops, for example. But really the advertisements are basically saying, hey, look, we've got an empty shop. Has anybody got any sort of an idea of how we can fill it? Much, much more impressive, much more likely to get results is if the local community and a traders organisation gets there and says, look, you know, we know our town, and these are the sorts of things that our town is doing. You know, we've got this promotional program, we've got these urban design works, we're involved in staff training and a campaign that's really starting to revitalise our businesses. We've identified that one of the gaps in our town is say a gourmet deli or say a footwear store or such like. We've looked around and we think that your business in such and such a town is an ideal sort of a business for our area. It will work in our area, and we're prepared to help you come into this town. Now, it could well be that operator is already looking to expand, and we're going to them and giving them an opportunity to open a second outlet. Or in some cases, they might be looking at a relocation for whatever reason.
The Mallee town of Birchip put this strategy into action when they actively sought an electrical goods store and an additional licensed plumber. But whether you consider Benella's ammunition factory or the new plumber for Birchip, both examples demonstrate communities using similar tactics on a different scale.
You know, every community can be really equated to a bucket. Money flows into that community or into that bucket every time a local resident or a local business receives a return, whether it be in the form of wages or salaries or return on sales, or whether it be in terms of returns on investment or dividends. Money flows into the bucket, flows into the community. But money also flows out through a whole series of holes in that bucket. Every time a local resident or business shops outside the area, recreates outside the area, invests outside the area, or purchases in a product or service from outside the area. Certainly the challenge for every community is to look at ways to plug that type of leakage.
That leakage Peter talks about can be quite significant. It was estimated that Melton traders were losing around $1 million a week because residents were shopping in the larger centres closer to Melbourne. The Melton Promotion and Development Association decided to take action and borrowed an idea they heard about which had operated in Swan Hill.
We got a lot of subcontractors who were at a reduced rate able to build a house. We had West Melton Developments who substantial donation, they donated a full block of land, total free. The house was built at relatively cheap cost, and people who in Melton bought something to the value of $5, anything over $5, they were given a ticket, and that ticket was one that could win the house and land.
Shops participating in the program displayed a sign in their windows, and a very impressive display of banners in the main street made it difficult for any locals or visitors to miss the promotion.
275 businesses were a part of the promotion, and we turned over $112.5 million, which is a significant amount of money. And of that, we estimate that there was somewhere around 15 to 20 million new dollars came into Melton.
Other communities have used simpler strategies to encourage people to circulate their money locally, reminding people about the connection between shopping close to home and creating local employment. Another way of getting people to patronise a local shopping centre is to encourage the shopkeepers to work together to make the centre more attractive, both physically and in relation to the service provided.
Traditional centres in the past have often offered great convenience and service, friendliness, atmosphere and so forth, because shopping is an emotional experience and people traditionally have related to those things. Now they have to get that kind of sense of niche back into it. They've got to understand that to really compete effectively, they have to offer good, friendly service and really gear their products and services to their customers.
A problem here is that if one business doesn't perform well, it can push business away, diverting it to other businesses outside the local area.
I know, for instance, that, say I'm a delicatessen or something, I know that people don't just buy at a delicatessen in the town. They buy at the butcher, they buy at the greengrocer, they buy at the newsagent, they buy at the pharmacist. Now, if one of those other four businesses is letting the town down, if they're not performing strongly, then people will start to buy their meat or the greengroceries or their pharmacy items or their stationery and such like at another town. And once they go outside town to buy one particular set of merchandise, they will buy all sorts of things, and we are all the losers. So it's important that we really all do work together and that we try and build the town overall, rather than just see ourselves as single players within a town.
Apart from retail examples, it's also likely that unnecessary economic leakage is happening in local industry. Another way of plugging leaks in the community economy is to encourage links between local businesses. This is the focus of an innovative project in Nunawading, where local government and Hewlett-Packard are investigating and encouraging networking between large and small companies. The aim is to plug leaks on a national scale through import replacement and on a local level through the interchange of component parts. Make sure you check the Go section of the Ready Set Go manual, where you'll find a lot more detail about other ways communities have been successful in plugging the leaks in their economies.
By job linking, we really refer to those type of initiatives that involve the use of social networks and different actions that help, for example, unemployed people in their search for employment. Those type of initiatives, for example, that help to fill jobs more quickly. Those type of initiatives that discover those hidden jobs that exist in every community. Those type of initiatives that help the flow of information, particularly to employers, about the forms of assistance to assist with job creation. And above all, those type of initiatives that often challenge employers about the attitudinal reasons rather than often economic reasons why they may not be expanding their workforces.
Probably the most impressive example of job linking in Australia has been the work undertaken by union leader Bill Kelty and businessman Lindsay Fox with their Work for Australia campaign. In 18 months and a tour that visited more than 30 communities, the pair were responsible for generating an estimated 55,000 jobs. The focus of the exercise was to encourage employers to look at possible enterprise action and to take advantage of various government job training initiatives. Inspired by this project, a number of job linking campaigns have been established. Jobs Action Geelong has been the result of a task force which has brought together a group which includes local government, the Department of Employment, Education and Training, the Trades Hall, service clubs and, most important, the local media. Geelong's newspapers and radio stations have assisted with subsidised advertising for the Jobs Action Geelong marketing campaign.
If I might summarise what Jobs Action is all about. Firstly, it is in motivating employers to take on new people. Secondly, it's giving the potential employees, many of whom have been out of work for a long time, some indication that there are people out there prepared to put them on. Then the trick is to match them up. Find people who are seeking a job in a certain category, and there's the employer who can match them, and that can now be done very successfully by DEET. The other activity is to assist that employer in going through those arrangements, because there are forms to be filled in, there's follow-up to be carried out, and generally to take away the burden from the very, very small employer.
Another example of job linking is the City of Waverley's Job Task Force. Launched in 1992, this project has brought together representatives from federal and local government, businesses of all sizes and community organisations. Activities have included training programs for job seekers, an information service for job seekers and employers, expanded work experience programs for secondary students, seminars, a job hunting book list, and the running of an employment week. Future activities planned at Waverley include a job interview training program. A very direct job-linking approach was used by the 3 rural shires close to Colac when retail employers in the community were door-knocked and asked if they'd ever considered taking advantage of the Australian traineeship scheme. From a community of 5,000, 21 traineeship positions were secured. Another outcome of getting that group of Mallee butchers together was a group apprenticeship scheme, another form of job linking. An advantage of this initiative was that the apprentices have been able to gain experience in a number of different shops rather than be isolated in a single small operation for their entire training. Other strategies that could be employed to create job links include organising a casual labour exchange to help unemployed or underemployed people find casual work, a job mate scheme where the job mate helps the job seeker find employment, a community job club to support job seekers, and any one of a number of ways in which potential job providers can be educated about national and regional employment schemes.
Increasingly, communities are also becoming aware of the importance of appearance and how they market their community to the outsider, whether that outsider be a potential new settler or a visitor to their community. And therefore, communities are becoming sensitive to issues like town entrance statements, signage, the condition of their town infrastructure, whether or not their main street contains empty shops. A whole series of issues that really reflect upon the image. Many communities have simply discovered that one doesn't get a second chance at a first impression.
Entrance signs are certainly likely to influence that initial impression. It's the first thing you see as you approach a community. How effective is any entrance statement you use? According to Peter Kenyon, the most effective entrance signage has an emotional or gut appeal. These signs from the Mallee Shire of Walpeyup certainly demonstrate a colourful, considered and attractive approach. Next, it's the physical state of the location that is going to affect and hopefully attract visitors. Improving the attraction of a community might take the form of street works, enhancing heritage aspects of an area, or some other form of appropriate decoration. Murals on building facades are the form of decoration used in the Tasmanian town of Sheffield. Borrowing an idea from a town in Canada, the concept was to turn a depressed small-town economy around by encouraging tourism. The murals are funded by a variety of sponsors, and Sheffield has become known as the town of murals, and it's now an important tourist destination in Tasmania. For any centre hoping to take advantage of tourism, an important factor is encouraging passing traffic to stop. The Mallee town of Kaniva, close to the South Australian border, did this in a very practical way. They built a toilet block, a very large toilet block, because they identified toilet facilities as a significant reason for travellers breaking their journey. And when people stop, the community benefits because there is an increased chance that dollars are going to be spent in the town. A similar strategy is being planned in Charlton, where the building of a toilet block in the town centre is the first stage of a development called the Traveller's Rest. Another way of marketing your centre to potential visitors is to stage a special event. Corryong organises an annual festival around the local theme, The Man from Snowy River.
We ran a tourism and recreation marketing seminar, and one of the great things that came out of that was, again, identifying what are the unique things we've got here, and we've developed a major festival in our community, the Corryong High Country Festival, and Riley's Ride, a reenactment of an epic ride through the mountains in which the man from Snowy River actually died.
A special event organised at Melton brought together model jet aircraft enthusiasts from all over the world. This was a joint initiative of the local Model Aircraft Club, the Shire of Melton, and a Melton business called Trim Aircraft, which incidentally has its home in one of those council-provided premises. The financial returns for a community from a local event can be significant. Cobram's Peaches and Cream Festival is estimated to bring in $4.5 million to the town in just 3 days. Other possibilities for special local events include swap meets, fun days, specialist conferences and workshops, sporting events, or market days. And as an example of what can be achieved by organising a successful market, the town of Murrabit near Kerrang is hard to beat. With a population of around 490 people, the Murrabit monthly market can attract up to 400 stallholders and more than 9,000 people.
Murrabit wouldn't have survived without the market. It's helped a lot of community organisations raise funds. They have food stalls there. Cake stalls can average of about $300 a market. The Recreation Reserve have a steak sandwich stall. They average $2,000 a market. The Lions Club have another stall with fast food. They have about $600 a market. And these sorts of things keep the community going.
The Market Committee also employs 3 part-time workers, publishes the community newsletter, and has provided a remarkable basis for economic development.
It provides a structure in a community that a lot of people didn't know existed. So you have people dropping into this centre, the market or the office, and from there you can build your networks, and then economic development just keeps on going.
In Victoria, successful markets and festivals abound. Other well-known examples include the Port Fairy Folk Festival, the Red Hill Produce Market, the Williamstown Market and Festival, and of course the Lygon Street Festa. Another interesting project focusing on business and tourism marketing is the Shire of Rodney's Fruit Connection, just outside Shepparton. This is a very impressive combination of tourist information, a refreshment facility, plus a marketing opportunity for local products.
Well, there were actually several aspects to it. One was to attract more tourists to the region and to raise the awareness of the travelling public as to the amount of produce that comes out of the region, both in food and quality arts and crafts. People are unaware of the abundance of food produced in this region. And while we have the big manufacturing companies, we also have a number of small enterprising businesses producing high quality food worthy of being exported. And the idea is to focus on the local produce, local arts and crafts in a way that make people aware when they go away, and to even select on the supermarket shelves from things they're familiar with through having visited here.
The Fruit Connection is built on what once was home for the local Koori people, and part of the project has been to involve Kooris in the development of various aspects of the project. This included working with young Kooris who designed and built a special playground fashioned in the shape of a long-necked turtle. An important part of any strategy, such as marketing your community, is to put in place an actual plan. Melton provides a good example of what can be achieved even in an area that could be seen as having little natural advantage.
Melton has really said, firstly it said, it's not a tourist mecca, let's get serious about it, but it does have good recreation infrastructure, and it does have substantial amounts of passing traffic in terms of people travelling both up the Calder and down the Western Highway. So what we needed to do was focus strategies on those two things and developing our recreation infrastructure further. So the strategies that have come with that is really working on fixing up our signage around the town so that you come through the municipality, you see good welcoming signage, you see good signage about information and take a break, and you can come off and follow that to information bays and information centres, and that when you get to those places there is good information there as well. So we've been developing brochures. We've now opened the Pluperfect Information Centre, which you've seen as a combination of information and antiques. We're now putting in these information bays, getting good external signage and information boards that are properly designed in place to really encourage people to come to those places. And also we're putting that at all the places we know people go, like the golf course, like the Exford Weir, like at McDonald's. I mean, let's be serious about it. That's a major attractor for people coming off the highway, so let's get stuff in there as well. And so they've been the sorts of foci to our recreation tourism focus.
Melton is also involved in marketing its community to its own residents. The Melton Pride campaign, with competitions, badges and special events, is designed to reinforce a positive image of Melton within the community. Finally, there's the question of reinforcing the image of your community with an overall corporate identity. For the city of Springvale, this was based on a combination of a landmark, the architecture of the railway station, and the colours of local foliage. The result was an image that has been used to reinforce a sense of identity in everything from all kinds of signage to stationery and even street furniture, all helping to provide that first impression that is so important for your community. In these 8 short video programs, we've strived to provide a whole range of case studies, examples and practical strategies that you can use to put into place to encourage economic development for your community. Make sure you also take advantage of all the other materials provided in this kit. This video has presented the essential background for a community like yours to become involved in community economic development. The concept of community economic development has been explained, a planning framework outlined, and 6 practical strategies have been illustrated with case studies. You will find that the Ready, Set, Go manual and the guidelines for community action and regional development strategy provide even more detail of the principles and best practice. Refer to these and consider how they best suit your community. By doing this, you will put yourself in a sound position to be ready, set and go for community economic development.